Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again yet to another video of our financial intelligence classes. Now, in this particular video, ladies and gentlemen, I want us to talk about gambling. In this particular video, ladies and gentlemen, I want us to talk about gambling. The reason why I chose this topic, ladies and gentlemen, is because gambling has become one of the emerging issues in our today's society, which is affecting 90% or 80% young people, that is youths aged between from 20 years to almost 40 years. From 20 years to 40 years, you can imagine this age group or this age gap has been affected so much on gambling. And you have seen we have seen reports, you have seen scenarios where people are going into depression, stress. You have seen how people are even killing themselves because of this issue of gambling. And ladies and gentlemen, as you know, gambling is whereby you are not satisfied with the amount of money you're earning or your financial situation at that particular moment, and then you decide that you will go further and probably try to win money through some means that are not even certified, and you find out that instead of winning that amount, you even become a victim of losing that particular amount. So ladies and gentlemen, in this particular video, I want us to talk about gambling. And what I want us to talk about is the effects of gambling, or what gambling is going to do to your life, so that if you are watching me and you are probably a victim of this, or you are addicted of this, you are aware of the effects of gambling. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how you can run away from this killer habit, or how you can do away with gambling through things that are going to list you on the whiteboard on what you can be able to do. But before I do that, ladies and gentlemen, remember, my name is Sir John Mweri. I'm a professional accountant with Xfinop Accountancy and Insurance Consultancy. And this is what I normally do. I educate the community, the society, about financial literacy, and of course, how to manage your investments, businesses, your own investment portfolio, and so on and so on. So anything to do with money, so that you can have a smooth financial path. That is what I normally do. You just come here, do some calculations and other relevant theory examples, so that you can see that you have a good financial path. Now, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can go ahead and subscribe. And this is another reason that you should always stay subscribed in this particular channel, because we talk a lot of, about a lot of things. So ladies and gentlemen, make sure you subscribe to this channel, make sure you share this video, give me a like, and of course, you can also put a comment on the comment section. Now, let's go to the effects of gambling. Effects of gambling. Effects of gambling. And of course, you realize these effects are going to be negative effects of gambling. Now, I have my notes here, just like the other old days, so that I can be able to refer all what I've written. And I want to go straight to my point number one, ladies and gentlemen, on the effects of gambling. Let's talk about financial problems. Financial problems. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you realize that when you start gambling, you are going to have some financial problems. And this kind of financial problems you are talking about is, number one, accumulation of debt. We can talk about accumulation of debt. Accumulation of debt. There are people who are going to get into gambling behavior, and they are going to be addicted by this behavior, such that even if they deplete the amount of money they were earning, they start borrowing so that they can fund the gambling. And I'll show you why people go on and borrow, so that they can be able to do gambling, or they can be able to continue doing that behavior. At the end of this particular video, I'm going to tell you why, even after you have depleted your own resources. There are people who even sell phones. You sell your own personal things, even in your own personal things in the house, so that that behavior has already gotten into you and you are not in control. It's like you are addicted. So you accumulate debts, you start borrowing from your friends, from bank, from SACCOs, Mshwari, Fuliza, and so on, so that you can be able to fund. And I'm going to tell you why. That is the first thing. The second thing, you can talk about bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is a situation whereby you don't even have money. You are declared bankrupt by even the legal community. You cannot be able to get into contract with other parties because you have been declared bank. We can also talk about poverty. Poverty is having financial problems. You cannot be able to cater for your own personal needs, and therefore it becomes a very bad behavior. You cannot even be able to protect yourself. And therefore we can add to this list all the financial problems. You can talk about eating, rent. There are people who use even rent money meant for basic needs, for example clothes, food. You can talk about people who even take friends' money, chamas money, and so on and so on. Probably you have been entrusted with money by a certain group. You are the treasurer of that particular group, and then you end up using that money for gambling, and again you lose that money to gambling. So ladies and gentlemen, we can talk about a whole list of financial problems, starting with accumulation of debts. You borrow everybody, bankruptcy, poverty, and so on and so on. The list can continue and become so big. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is the first effect of gambling, and we have talked about financial problems. Now, let's talk about the second effect of gambling. Let's talk about mental health issues. We talk about mental health issues. Now, ladies and gentlemen, of course, when you find yourself, you have financial problems, the second thing that kicks in is mental health issues. And when we talk about mental health issues, is when the habit is now gotten into you and you are no longer in control. You have lost a lot of money and now you are not functioning well. You think of killing yourself, and therefore you have these suicidal thoughts. You have a lot of stress, you have a lot of anxiety, you are depressed, you are wondering where you can recover that particular money. So ladies and gentlemen, it becomes a whole package of you not even being able to control yourself. So it can be very deadly. You have seen a lot of people try to kill themselves. Others even kill themselves because they cannot take it anymore. You find that you have a lot of people who want their money back. There are people who owe you a lot of money, and therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it becomes a very big problem. It becomes disastrous. You find that you have even eaten your family members' money, and therefore, even the shame itself is going to kill you. And then you get into depression. You cannot be able to do anything. You are full of anxiety. You have stress, and therefore, you can even have a lot of diseases coming on your way, and you cannot be able to handle that. So, ladies and gentlemen, mental health is so bad. It's one of the worst diseases that you can have. We normally say that it's better to lack money, but when it comes to your mind, you are so good, you don't have stress, and you can think straight, and there is nothing that you cannot be able to do as long as you have a good mind state, even if you are not having money. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is another effect of gambling. Let's go to effect number 3. Ladies and gentlemen, we go to effect number 3, and we are talking about relationship breakdown. Relationship breakdown, that is relationship. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about relationship breakdown, it's when relationship between your partner, between your friends, between your family members, you break everything. For example, there are people who are going to be divorced because of these particular behaviors. You had planned something with your wife or your husband, and then simply because you had put some money aside and you agreed that this money we are going to start a business, and then even either you are a wife or a husband, you go and gamble with that money, and that is the end of the trust or the business that you had agreed together that you are going to to open. And therefore this habit is normally done by men. And therefore you, even the partner or the wife or the person that you are living with loses trust in you, and therefore sees that you are not walking on the same road. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, you know what normally happens. You begin problems at home, you have problems with your partner, and therefore there is no trust there. And therefore you might end up even divorcing each other and going your own separate ways, and that is the end of you. So ladies and gentlemen, losing trust with your friends again, for example, you borrowed your friend's money and then you lied to them that you wanted to sort an issue, only is that you wanted to borrow that money so that you can be able to fund gambling. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, when you don't return that money because you lost to gambling, then you lose trust with your friends, and your friends cannot be able to trust you again. And then when it comes to family members, ladies and gentlemen, you know how people lie to family members. Oh, I'm sick here and there, and therefore, but you know exactly what you are going to do with that particular money. And when people come to find out that what was doing was not right, and then it becomes a very big disaster. So ladies and gentlemen, relationship breakdown, you can see all this weight coming onto you. You can imagine financial problems, at the same time you are having mental health issues, at the same time you are not in good terms with your partner, with your friends, with your family, and you are just one single person. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see the effects of gambling when you lose. All right, let's go to my point number 4. We are talking about work and academic issues. Work and academic issues. Now, the reason why I've put work and academic issues is because, for example, you might be a person who is employed and you have gotten in yourself into this behavior of gambling. And when you lose to gambling and you are employed and you have all these financial problems, mental health issues, relationship breakdowns, when you have all that, then you cannot present yourself in a work organization or in a working environment as a whole. You cannot be able to have that 100% mental status to handle this kind of work that you have been given in that particular organization. So ladies and gentlemen, it's going to affect you even in a work. You cannot deliver 100%. You will be distracted, you will be stressed, you will be depressed, and therefore even your outcome there at work, it's very low. And therefore even the managers or the supervisors will notice, and in most cases you will end up losing that particular job because you cannot be able to concentrate. You can see even when it comes to academic, you can be working at the same time you are studying. You cannot be able to study. Even when you are a student, you have been given money by your parents, and then you find yourself in gambling and you lose your school fees to gambling. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see the effect. You're not able to move academically. You're not able to do your end of term examinations or end of year examinations because the school fees you ate, thinking that you are to put that money to multiply, only to realize that you lost to gambling. So ladies and gentlemen, work and academic issues is another big thing that can affect you so bad when it comes to gambling. Now let's go to my point number 5. That was my point number 4. When I talk about my point number 5, ladies and gentlemen, addiction and impulse control. Addiction and impulse control. So ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about addiction and impulse control, when we talk about addiction and impulse control, you all know that addiction is that situation whereby you're trying to stop something, but it's already in your blood or something. It's like you are used to it. And then you can ask, like, even those people who take alcohol and then they are addicted to alcohol, it means that you cannot do without that particular thing. Even when it comes to gambling, can addict you in so many ways. You find that, and in most cases, when it comes to addiction of gambling, is whereby you have lost so much money, and therefore you are trying your best to recover this particular amount. So anytime you get a small amount of money, you put it back there so that you can try and see whether you can get back, you can win the money that you have you are chasing losses. That is, in simple terms, you are chasing losses, right? You get 10,000, and what comes in your head is how you can recover the money you lost. You get something from your friends, or you are paid some money at the end of the month. All you can think is the money that you are lost, and then what you can think is just putting that money back to the gambling game and see whether you can get back the money you lost. So ladies and gentlemen, that is how addiction comes in. And then you find yourself, you are not able to control yourself, because you still believe in your head that you can still win back the money that you lost. And that is what we call impulse control. You don't have control of your resources anymore. You are just losing to gambling. And at this particular time, you are not thinking straight. And therefore, you cannot even do it right. You just pump in money and everything is lost, ladies and gentlemen. So that is addiction and impulse control. That is impulse behavior. You can't stop even when losing. This is where you put money, you pump money, you lose, you pump again, you lose. And therefore, even when you earn again and again and again, you still believe that you can get something back. You are chasing losses. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, impulse control eats everything. You get into financial problems, mental health issues, relationship breakdowns, work and academic issues. Ladies and gentlemen, it becomes very much chaotic. So you must see how you can avoid gambling. Then number 6, ladies and gentlemen, on that particular note, legal consequences. Legal consequences. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in most cases, when young people or these people between that age that I've given you, when you find yourself now in this whole situation, in most cases, they will find themselves in illegal activities. You find themselves that they are broke, they are trying to make ends meet. They don't have anything to provide for their families. And therefore, what do? They engage themselves into illegal activities. They become thieves. You can think of theft. You can think of illegal bettings and so many other illegal behaviors that you can think about. And therefore, when you are caught and you are a thief, you can imagine what normally happens. If you are a thief and you are caught, you can even be killed. You appear in a court of law, and then you are unafungwa tu. You get what I'm saying? So legal consequences is a direct effect of gambling, ladies and gentlemen, because of financial problems, mental health issues, relationship breakdowns, and so on and so on. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the 6 effects of gambling. Now, how can we try and avoid this, or how can you resolve this? Let me get rid of this now, because now that you know the effects, let's see on how you can resolve the same. How can you resolve the same? Now, let's talk about resolving. How can you resolve the same? On my point number 1, ladies and gentlemen, on how you can resolve is self-awareness and acknowledgement. Self-awareness and acknowledgement. Now, self-awareness and acknowledgement. This is simply calling yourself in a meeting, kujiita kamkutano, unasema, oh my Jesus, now I'm this. There is a time you normally even sit like this and talk to yourself, organize your mind and think. And that's now when you call yourself into a meeting and tell yourself, I've been doing this and this and that, and now I want to reform. Because, ladies and gentlemen, you realize that not unless the decision comes from inside, you, even the whole world can talk to you. But if you yourself, you have not decided, then it doesn't serve any purpose. So at the end of it all, even if people talk to you, oh, John, stop gambling. Oh, you see, even if you are seeing that the damage of gambling that you have caused, and you have not made that decision, you have not called yourself in a silent meeting and told yourself, now, John, this is enough. You need to stop this. So self-awareness and acknowledgement, you need to accept that the impact is too much and the damage has already happened. And therefore, you ask yourself, how can you be able to stop this behavior? And it is at that particular moment you start reforming. you start looking for strategies that you can do so that you can stop that particular behavior. But if you are not able to acknowledge and do what we call self-awareness, then it becomes very hard for you. Even when your parents talk to you, even when a lot of people, your friends and everybody, or therapists or professional financial advisors try to talk to you, it is of no purpose, because if that decision has not come from inside you, then nothing will happen. So ladies and gentlemen, self-awareness and acknowledgement. If you are there and you're looking at me and you are addicted to this particular behavior, then first of all, the first step is self-awareness. First of all, jiita kamkutano, ask yourself whether it's right, look at the damage that you have caused, and then still ask yourself, is it still worth to continue with that particular behavior? And from that particular moment, you can look for alternatives or other ways or strategies in which you can be able to stop that particular behavior. My second point on the same, ladies and gentlemen, is setting limit and block access to. You set limits, and block access to gambling. Set limits and block access to gambling. Now, when we talk about here we are talking about two terms: setting limits and blocking access. Now, let me talk about setting limits. When we talk about setting limits, how can you be able to set limits? Now, when we talk about gambling, it's triggered by several factors. For example, number one, peer pressure. Number two, internet, but in most cases is peer pressure. Number two, peer pressure from friends. It can be peer pressure from social media. All right, you see peer pressure from social media. You see people at, oh, I played Aviator and then I became a rich person, and therefore you start having this notion that even you can do that particular game and win. You see, that is peer pressure from social media. A friend of you appears to you, and then imagine I bet with 30,000 and it came out as 60,000, and then you decide that you are also going to do the same. So that is peer pressure from friends and peer pressure from social media. If you realize that your circle or the friends that you have are all gamblers, if the friends of you have or the circle that surrounds you, all those people are gamblers, then it becomes very hard for you to stop. Not unless you stop with those friends. Not unless not unless you break that particular circle and move on to people who are productive or people who have a different point of view other than gambling, then you are not going to stop gambling. As long as you stay or stick in those friends who gamble, then it becomes very hard for you to stop gambling. So set limits. First of all, if it's friends, cut them off, and then look for people who can help you financially and in other legit ways of earning money. If it's internet, for example, phone, if it's internet that is affecting you, and anytime you scroll, there is this thing that comes, oh, you can bet here and win millions of money, you can spin the wheel, those kind of things, then you can limit the time that you normally use your phone, or you can limit the time that you normally use your internet, so that you can start teaching. Remember, it's reforming, it's resolving. You can start teaching yourself on the measures that you can take so that you can stop with this behavior of gambling. That is just two examples of setting limits. Blocking access, you have other social media tools that you can be able to use so that you can block access to those gambling sites and so on and so on. If it's even television, they normally advertise those things. You can just always distract yourself whenever that advert comes along, and you just think that it did not even exist. Of course, you can do that. That is when you have done what we call self-awareness, or you have said that even if this happens, I'm not going to follow these things. So ladies and gentlemen, setting limits and blocking access is another way to resolve. Now, the third thing is seeking professional help. You seek professional help. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, there are people who are out there who are experts in resolving these kinds of behaviors. They are professionals. They know what they normally do. They have procedures. And of course, you can always look for these people. If you feel that you cannot stop it on your own and you need some help, you can always look for these professionals, and they can be able to help you stop with this behavior, and they are going to take you step by step until you recover fully from this particular behavior. And of course, they can also teach you on the professional ways of earning money and of course building wealth. The fourth thing on resolving is joining support groups, joining support groups, joining support groups. Ladies and gentlemen, when you talk about joining support groups, these are people with common this is joining a support group. These are people with common goals. For example, if you realize that there is a group that you can enter, and at the end of it all, you are going to have helped yourself in terms of mental, in terms of financial, and so on and so on. Probably there are things that they normally do, and you feel that they can align with your needs at that particular moment. Probably personal, that is mental needs, physical needs, social needs, and so on and so on. At that particular moment you're trying to recover, you can always join these support groups, and they can be able to support you mentally, socially, and so on and so on. So ladies and gentlemen, you can always join any support group that you feel like. These are things that you can Google on social media, and you can get that information. Then the other thing on resolving is financial counseling, financial counseling, financial counseling. And we talk about financial counseling, ladies and gentlemen, there now here is looking for professional financial advisors like John here. You can look for me. I can be able to take you through that session. And me, I'm just going to tell you the truth that there is no shortcut to earning money. Even the Bible says there is no shortcut. The Bible says that a man must toil and sweat for you to earn a living. So ladies and gentlemen, there is no way that you are just going to have free money. No, it has never happened like that. You have to work, you have to sweat, all right, so that you can even eat. That is God who said that. So who are you as a human being to dispute that? And you think that you can get that free money and go away with it? So ladies and gentlemen, professional financial counseling is where now a professional advisor or a financial advisor is going to tell you that you have to work. This is what you can do. This is where you can invest. This is a strategy that you can use. So that this is where I'm going to tell you that you need to give yourself time so that you can have that financial freedom that you need. So ladies and gentlemen, financial counseling is another approach of resolving gambling. So let's go to the next, engaging in healthy alternatives. That is our point number 6, healthy alternatives. Healthy alternatives. Now, healthy alternatives, when you think of gambling and when it comes to your mind and you feel like it's coming into you, you can always distract your mind by doing other things. For example, you can just walk out if you are alone in your house, and then it came and you feel like, oh, it's here now, it's telling me to gamble, it's time. You can walk out and go for a walk, ladies and gentlemen. Take a long walk and see whether you can relieve. You can also replace gambling with other hobbies. For example, you can watch a movie to distract you. You can take a walk. You can run up and down. You can do other things. You can look for friends that you can distract your mind and probably request them so to go out with you, so that you can see whether you can distract your mind and do some other things. So ladies and gentlemen, other healthy alternatives, you can read books, you can engage in skill learning, so that you can keep your mind occupied somewhere else. Because when you stay idle, that is where now the devil comes in. When you stay idle, that is where the devil comes in, and then you will find yourself in the same behavior. So ladies and gentlemen, engaging in a healthy alternatives behaviors is another way to resolve. Now, the last one is involving your family members. The last one, number 7, is involving your family members. But you know, this one is going to be according to you, because sometimes I don't recommend people to engage your family members, because you know, sometimes it depends with the kind of family that you normally have, because there are people if you share with your family members, then it becomes the talk. It becomes the main topic in your family, and then everybody is discussing you. But instead of helping you, they are gossiping, and it becomes very unhealthy. You are looking for help, but to some people, it's gossip. So, ladies and gentlemen, always involve your. You can always tell these behaviors or involve someone that you can trust and someone who can keep their mouths shut, and but always try to help you in one way or the other. So, ladies and gentlemen, having talked about the effects, I hope you can remember them and hope you wrote them somewhere. Having talked about the effects of gambling and how to resolve them, that is now constitutes the video of today on how the gambling has affected the young people. So, ladies and gentlemen, if this video and you feel that it has helped you and you feel that it can help someone who is struggling somewhere with gambling, you can share this video to them so that they can watch up to the end. Probably they are going to grab one point or two, and therefore probably they stop or they come to their senses and they do what we call self-awareness and stop. You can also reach out to me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm also a counselor, as apart from being a professional financial advisor. I can talk to you. We can go to sessions or even connect to you people that can be able to help you. And my contacts are always on the description, ladies and gentlemen. My email and my contact are always on description. On the description, you can call me, you can email me, whichever you want. You can WhatsApp me anytime you want. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was all for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. We meet in our next video. See you on the next.